الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It gives me great pleasure to be here today with you, the youth. And I've mentioned this quite a number of times in the past, that the reason why I prefer to be here, because I will be interacting with youth. And the youth, this age, is the age in which people can make decisions that can make a huge difference in their lives. And if you meet the same person 20, 15 years from now, they would have already made those decisions and they would have already succeeded or messed up their lives. So then it will be too late to give any advice, because the repercussions and the consequences of those decisions would have taken place and affected their lives majorly. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, لن تزول قدم عبد يوم القيامة حتى يسأل عن أربع. A man will not be allowed to move away from the place of accounting until he is asked about 4 things. And then he says the first thing is about his lifetime, how he wasted it or how he spent it. But then after that he says, وعن شبابه فيما أفناه. And then the youth time. So youth time is part of your lifetime, right? You will be asked about your lifetime in general, but in particular, you will be asked about your youth time. Because this is the time that is the golden time of your life. The time in which you can achieve the most, the time in which you can do the most significant decisions in your life. Some of those decisions are unreversible. They either take you to success or they take you to misery and a horrible life. So alhamdulillah, the reason why I like to meet young people, because this is the best time to meet them, the best time to give advice where advice is likely to help. And I hope you also appreciate this and you take this gathering seriously. Which takes me to the following question. If I was to ask, why are you here? Why are you here? What would you say that? What would you answer me? You can put your hands up. Why are you here? Yes, sister?
To be knowledge about how to choose the right spouse, how to make the most of money in regards to worshiping Allah and gaining knowledge and marriage in the name of goodness. Use the right words.
MashaAllah.
So your spouse will be leading to Jannah and to Jahannam or vice versa.
MashaAllah, that's a very good answer. MashaAllah. Anyone else? Basically around this meaning, that's the correct answer. I did not want any one of you to be saying that I came here because of curiosity. I'm just curious. I just want to see what is there to be heard and what is there to be said about love and marriage in Islam. Curiosity is good, but should not be the reason why you're here. And also, you should not be saying that I am free, so I thought that I might as well just come. Okay? You should not be saying, some of my friends came, so I came with them. Right? If this is the reason why you came, then you're not likely to benefit. You're not likely to benefit. You need to come here believing that what you are going to hear about in this lecture concerning life, marriage, and love is going to be something critical that will affect you and your life in a very immense measure. Because you know that the Quran or the Sharia gives you guidance to that which makes you have a more fulfilling life. Are we all aware of this? Do we all believe that in the Quran there is guidance for people to become righteous in terms of their akhirah, and also to become righteous so that they can get the best of their lives? Are we all aware of this? Because it's a common understanding that people think that in the Quran or in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ there are guidance on how to pray, how to perform fasting, how to do Hajj, etc. And in so doing, you will become a righteous person for the Akhirah. Right? That is everybody's understanding, but there's more to it than that. In Islam, Islam guides you so that you are righteous in such a way that you will have a happy life in this dunya and a happy life in the akhirah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran in Surah Al-Isra, chapter 17, verses 9 and 10, إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمُ. Verily, this Quran gives guidance to that which is the best, to the best way, to the best method, that gives you success in both. Aqwam means to be established. Qa'im, that's why we say iqamatul salat means to establish the prayer. Like for you to be established, well grounded, then there are ways that are going to be taught to you in this Quran. It's your job to explore them. So this is one of your reasons for being here. Secondly, you should know that if you have any form of guidance, any form of knowledge, but you fail on taking on board the knowledge from the Quran, then you are going to be receiving a form of misguidance. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا الضَّلَالِ. The haqq is what's in this Quran. The haqq is what the Prophet ﷺ came with. The knowledge the Prophet ﷺ came with is the truth and is the ultimate form of righteousness. If you abandon that and you seek knowledge somewhere else, you will get only confusion. You will only get misguidance. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ. What's beyond the truth except misguidance? So as a believer, you should have this panic that there is knowledge in this deen, there is knowledge in this Islam, that if I don't attain it, I will not have a successful life. And therefore, I need to attain it as soon as possible. In particular, in your age now. Because you can attain this knowledge later on in life. You know, when you're 30, 40, in your mid-40s, you can attain the knowledge then. Right? But then it will be too late. What's the point of getting the knowledge at that point in your life when you have already made the critical decisions in your life? You've already taken the turns, the important turns in your life. Okay? So you need to feel this sense of urgency now, as youth, at university, or even before this, to feel that the knowledge I need to know about Islam has to come to me now, not later on in life, because I'm making the decisions right now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created us, and He is the one who knows best how we can live our lives in a more successful manner. You know, experts, scientists, philosophers, psychologists, they can say all they want, but they will never give you this peace of mind. They will never give you this certainty, because they are not the creators. The creator, the one who created you, is the one who knows how best you can live your life. And because of that, when you hear from Him, you feel peace in your mind. If you hear from other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever they can be, an expert, a philosopher, a psychologist, or whatever, you will be saying that they are entitled for their life, they are entitled for their opinion, but I don't have to agree with it. I have my own conclusions, I have my own philosophy in life. But when it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will land in your heart with peace and tranquility. So, in today's lecture, inshallah, I want this to be an interaction section. An interactive session, inshallah, whereby I will be taking your views and your questions and discussing things in that way. Rather than me giving you a monologue and delivering, it's best if I give you a small introduction, about love and marriage, and then I will be entertaining your discussions and your comments and your questions. And please feel free to ask questions that may even be personal to you, but the easiest way to get out of this is to say, a friend of mine have this. You know? A lot of people do that, and it's fine. Say, a friend of mine is going through this. But I really need to answer your questions, because if you leave this session here today and you haven't had your particular questions asked, then what's the point? And I'd like to mention here that I have been dealing with counseling counseling marriage problems and married people for over 15 years now. There isn't anything that I have not seen. I have seen everything. And therefore, it is really a privilege for you to have me here, and I can answer any question that may come to mind. So don't shy away. Ask the questions. You will benefit, and other people will also benefit with you. And there is no question that is too weak or too silly or too stupid. No. The question that comes to your mind is definitely applicable to other people in this gathering. So don't be shy. Ask your questions. To begin with, I will say love in Islam. Love. Because before we speak about marriage, you need to understand that love is the basis for marriage. You only marry to satisfy the need to love and to be loved. Right? And therefore, it's in your interest to make sure that you understand what love is. That's a very important idea here. You don't want to be confusing some other feelings with love, thinking that this is you being in love with this person and therefore you want to marry them. Okay? I don't want to depict a bleak picture here, but I am sure you've heard of the statistics of marriage and divorce. What is happening out there? A lot of divorce is taking place. A lot of divorce is taking place. And I know it's easy for you in this point of your life to think that I am an exception. Me and so, my suitor or my potential husband or wife, we are different. Whatever happened to other people is not going to happen to us. Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi says this is the deception we all, the majority of people fall into willingly. The shaitan deceives us like that and we happily embrace that deception because it makes us feel good. We don't want to think that what happened to other people, the misfortune that happened to other people, will also happen to us. We don't want to be thinking like this. This is too complicated. You know, we would rather believe that we are exceptions. Even if you ask yourself, in what way are you an exception? You have no reason to believe that you are an exception. Whatever happened to other people, if you follow their footsteps, the same thing that happened to them will happen to you. And therefore, when you look at what happened out there, you realize that there is something intrinsically missing in the understanding people have about love, marriage, and relationships. And therefore, inshallah, in this section, inshallah, I will not be able to fully cover the topic of love, how to understand love. Okay? This is for you to go away and explore more. But to begin with, let me tell you that love in Islam is an idea that is well served. Islam have served the idea of love quite extensively, because the ibadah in Islam is revolving around what? The idea of love. We worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we glorify Him because of love. Love is the basis for our ibadah. And you would imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will definitely speak about love in the Sunnah and in the Quran for us to understand and learn. So once you have understood what love is from an Islamic point of view, then you can understand how love is taking place between people. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts that we will have love to other than Him. What He wants from us is that the love we have for Him supersedes and overrides all other types of love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَتَّخِذُ مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ أَنْدَادًا يُحِبُّونَهُمْ كَحُبِّ اللَّهِ. And amongst people, there are those who take beside Allah equals, and that whom they love like the way they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whom they love like the way they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that there is no problem with you loving other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not in the same way you love Allah, not in the same degree you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah accepts from you to have love for other than Him, but you have to make the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala superior and overarching and controlling of every other type of love that you get involved with. And we also know that love, in reality, is the one thing that is, or the one strong emotion that influences people in a lot of their decisions in life. A lot of our decisions in life revolves around love or the lack of it. So if the Prophet ﷺ taught us everything in our deen that benefits us, as far as explaining to us how we go to the toilet. Do you imagine Islam to go away without explaining what love is? The explanation is there, is for us to go and learn it. So in Islam, al-hub, in Islam, it means to develop an inclination towards someone with whom you feel a sense of settlement. To develop an inclination towards somebody, al-mail, towards somebody with whom you will find peace and tranquility. And this is because this person, and now here ideally we're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have so much admiration for, you have so much veneration for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and being with Him makes you feel content. When you are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you feel very content in such a way that you would not rather be anywhere else. When you are with Allah, you will not be thinking that you would rather be somewhere else. That is what love is, from Islamic point of view. And if you are taken away from Allah, if anything, if dunya take you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will feel a sense of disturbance. You feel annoyed. You feel agitated, wanting to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So this is what love is, and therefore you can understand what love is from a human perspective. Love is based on admiration. When you admire a person so much, you know their characteristics, you know their qualities, you know their attributes, you know them so well that you feel that these attributes and these qualities that this person has are admirable, and because of that, when you are with this person, you would not rather be with somebody else. That's one thing. Two, this person makes you feel good about yourself. When you are with him, you feel good about yourself. Right? So that's why the ulama, they say, love has two foundations: trust and respect. Trust and respect. When you have respect for a person, and then you know of their attributes, so many good qualities that they make you feel that you can trust them. That will be love from a human perspective. So when you look for somebody with whom you want to have a feeling of love, these are what you're looking for. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith, إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ. If you are approached with someone, the deen of whom and the manners of whom you are content with, then marry him off. Marry your daughters, your sisters, off to this person. So the most important thing is the deen and the manners. Why is this important? Can anyone tell us, why is the deen important? Yes, sister? Yes, you.
If someone has good deen, then we fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that way they will have respect for you and they will fulfill your rights. And moreover, if somebody is closer to Allah and follows the deen, then they will have more characteristics that you could admire even from the deen as well.
MashaAllah, yes. The deen, when you are married to a person, marriage is basically the only relationship with whom you will have this constant friction. You know, in real life, you come here, you meet your colleagues, your classmates for a short number of hours, but then you go away. And that's why with your friend, you hardly have any problems. Why? Because you only meet them for a couple of hours and then you go your separate ways. But the only one person with whom you are almost all the time with, and for the rest of your life, is your spouse. Can you think of anyone else who would have this kind of connection with you? None. Right? And that's why you are likely to have lots of problems. You are likely to have lots of problems, lots of conflicts, lots of tension. And when that happens, how can you guarantee that your rights are going to be fulfilled? How can you guarantee that this person will not violate you and your rights? A person that fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and has deen in them, this person you can feel safe with. Remember when we said that love is feeling safe with the person. So you cannot feel safe with anyone, you cannot trust anyone unless they have deen in them. Also the Prophet ﷺ, he says, Deenahu wa khuluqahu. The deen is one thing, and khuluq. Khuluq is what? Manners. Manners. And we can say habits. Habits. So khuluq is the habitual acts of a person. How does he habitually interact with people, life, events, and so on and so forth? Right? For example, one habit is to be quick to judge. One habit is to be suspicious all the time. One habit is to be angered so easily, to have like a quick temper. One habit is for a person to be unable to control their desires, whatever the desires are. These are manners. So the Prophet ﷺ, he is saying that there is deen and there is khuluq. Isn't the khuluq part of the deen? Isn't the khuluq part of the deen? Yes. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I've only been sent to complete the higher standards of manners. So basically, all Islam, the message of Islam can be summarized in this. To perfect manners or good traits of manners. So why the Prophet ﷺ is emphasizing, or why is he mentioning, after deen, he mentions akhlaq. Even though akhlaq is part of the deen. Even though akhlaq, manners, are part of the deen, why the Prophet ﷺ mentions it? He says ad-deen and then akhlaq. Yes, sister.
Is it because some people can have deen, but they don't implement their deen?
Yes, people sometimes they have deen, and please take note of this, because sometimes people have wrong understanding of deen. They implement something they think is the deen, but it's not. I have seen so many cases where people pray 5 daily prayers in the masjid. They have done Hajj so many times. They do fasting and the compulsory and the optional. But when it comes to dealing with people, they transgress. They take people's properties. They don't fulfill people their rights. How does that fit in together? Their understanding of the deen is flawed. They don't have the proper understanding of the deen, and therefore I have not benefited from their deen. What's the benefit of being with such person when all he understands from the deen is to pray and maybe even read Quran, but that ritualistic form of ibadah does not have an impact on them? This is critical, brothers and sisters, right? Because sometimes we will be quick to judge for the brother a sister, and we say, mashallah, she's a good sister, and then you start thinking about marriage with her. Simply because you see her wearing a hijab, wearing a jilbab, or wearing a niqab, and you think that this is it. Right? But does that have to be the case? Not necessarily. Right? And forgive me, sisters, if I'm saying this. Right? It goes both ways. Right? Sometimes our understanding of the deen is so shallow that we only implement the apparent aspects of it. And that's why sometimes, I'm sure you all agree with this, you come across people who are not practicing. Officially, they're not practicing. But they have manners, subhanAllah, that some practicing people don't have. Right? Have you come across this? How is it that there is somebody who is practicing, they pray, they read Quran, they attend classes, etc., etc., but when it comes to their manners, they are such a despicable human beings. You don't want to be with them, you don't want to talk to them, you don't want to have anything to do with them at all. Because their understanding of the deen is flawed. So now, when you look for somebody to marry, don't be deceived by outward looks. Understand what does it entail for a person to have deen. If they have deen, they will have manners. And what aspects of the deen should you be looking at? And the same thing I said to the brothers, I said to the sisters, don't be confused simply because a brother is attending salat regularly, or wearing thobe, or having a beard, or something like this. Don't be confused thinking that this is enough for you to say that, oh, he's got deen. Right? It works both ways. The apparent looks of a person do not necessarily indicate their inside. You need to be smart enough to ask the right questions, right? To look deeper, to see whether this person has really admirable qualities that you can consider marriage with them. For example, something that I've always highlighted is to be with somebody who is engaged in seeking Islamic knowledge. This is something that most people don't even ask about. Right? And some people, they even classify themselves as practicing brothers or sisters, but they don't seek Islamic knowledge. And there's a problem with this. Because how could you practice something that you have no understanding of it? If you're truly willing to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wouldn't you be also eager to find out what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first place? If you're not seeking to learn that, then there's a problem with your practice. So this is something for you to think about for yourself, and also ask the potential suitor that you might come across in life if they are engaged in any form of education, Islamic education. If they're not engaged in any form of Islamic education, don't be deceived by the name practicing brother, practicing sister. It's not about labels. It's about realities that we live in our lives. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says, إِذَا جَاءَكُم مَّن تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ. When you are approached by somebody, the deen of whom and the manners of whom are good, then give him away your daughters. And it works both ways. For a sister, the same thing. If she is practicing, she has a deen, she has manners, then she is the right person. The Prophet ﷺ also mentioned that the best متاع, he said that dunya متاع وخير متاع الدنيا الزوجة الصالحة. He said متاع, this dunya is متاع, is provisioning for a journey. You're journeying towards al-akhirah, and whatever you possess in this dunya should be your provisioning that helps you attain your destination, reach your destination. And then he says the best form of provisioning, or the best form of sustenance, is to have a righteous wife. And all these ahadith, by the way, you need to understand them in both ways. So basically, for brothers, the best thing that will help you with your akhirah is a righteous wife. And the best thing that will help you with your akhirah for a sister as well is your righteous husband. So therefore, one, they should stem from the love of akhirah to begin with. And out of the love of akhirah, you would love this person. Because you know that without them, your akhirah will not be fulfilled. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he says, whoever marries has completed half their deen. Whoever marries, then he has completed half of his deen, and let him fear Allah on the remaining half. Imam al-Qurtubi, commenting in this hadith, he says, because in the other hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, he says, "Man ضمن لي ما بين لحييه وما بين فخذيه ضمنت له الجنة." Whoever secures and guarantees for me that which is between his mustache and with his beard, meaning the mouth, the tongue, right? And protects for me and guards for me that which is between his leg, the private part, I will guarantee him Jannah. Your Jannah is guaranteed. But if you marry a good wife or a good husband, then alhamdulillah, one half of the problem is solved. You only have to worry about the other half, which is the tongue. So knowing that your akhirah, your salvation in the akhirah, is dependent on whether you are with the right person or not, then that makes you cherish this relationship, appreciate them, right? Because this is what you need to be looking at. You need to be looking at somebody who you would love them for more reasons than the physical. The physical, and again, let me emphasize this, the physical is something that you should never settle for. It's part of our nature. We should be looking for beauty, attraction. The physical attraction has to be there, but should not be the only reason for which you admire the person. Because immediately after marriage, even if you are married to the most beautiful person, physically the most attractive person, even if you married such person, soon after that, you will just find them like normal. You will find them very normal because, you know, they say, كثرة المساس تبطل الإحساس. When you see the person regularly, خلاص, you get bored of them. Now you are seeking to find something beyond that. And I have seen cases in my counseling sessions. I have seen cases where there was this brother who's married, mashallah, to a very beautiful lady. Yet, eventually, during the marriage, he was caught having an affair. And subhanAllah, the sister was saying that she is so frustrated that this person isn't even half as beautiful as her. That's what annoyed her. Right? But this is what happens. When people get bored with the physical attraction, they don't see the beauty in it anymore. Khalas. Now, even a person that is half as beautiful as the wife or the husband, you can find attraction towards them as well. If the physical attraction is what you're looking for. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith concerning how should a man choose a wife, he says, تُنْكَحُ الْمَرْأَةُ لِأَرْبَعٍ. And again, please understand the same thing. This is the same characteristics you should be looking out for in a husband. A lady will be married for 4 characteristics. He said, تُنْكَحُ الْمَرْأَةُ لِأَرْبَعٍ لِمَالِهَا وَلِحَسَبِهَا وَلِجَمَالِهَا وَلِدِينِهَا. 4 qualities are sought in marrying a lady. حسبها, her lineage, her family. She should be from a good family, from a good honorable family. Right? Number 2, for her beauty, for her physical attraction. That's fine. You should be seeking that. And لِمَالِهَا, for her wealth. That is not a problem. You know, one should be considering to marry somebody who is better off in life, comfortable. Right? And also لِدِينِهَا, for her deen. What this hadith means, that these are the kind of things you should be looking out for. As a husband, when you look for a wife, and as a lady, when looking out for a good husband. These are the kind of things you should be looking out for. And I remember, subhanAllah, I spoke to a brother recently who says that, subhanAllah, the misery of his life stemmed from misunderstanding this hadith. The misery of his life stemmed from misunderstanding this hadith. He said that his understanding of the hadith was that you should not worry about wealth, you should not worry about honor and family, you should not worry about beauty, worry only about the deen. And he did that. He married a sister that he was not content with her beauty, he was not content with her family, he was not content with he never asked. He said, as long as she's practicing, that's all that matters to me. Is this the understanding of the hadith? That's not the understanding of the hadith. No, the hadith says you should look out for these qualities. Try to find them. But whatever you miss out of those 4, make sure that you never miss out on the religion, the deen. Look out for all 4 of them. Right? And the same thing I will say to you now. These can be things that you should be looking out for. Right? Marrying somebody from a good family. How does that have bearing in you? You know, sometimes you find the youth, they are so excited about love and affection and the way they are attached to a particular person in their life. They say, I'm not concerned with his family. Am I going to marry him or his family? You know, this is love speaking. This is love talking. Not reason, not logic. Right? You are going to marry him and his family. That's the reality. When you marry a person, you are going to marry both. The person and his family. They are going to be part of your life. Right? What you should be looking out for is a person who has a stable upbringing, a stable family life. This is what you should be looking at. Right? You should be looking out for somebody who has parents who are in love with one another. Who fight, but their fights and their conflicts are always managed properly. Because this person, he or she, has seen life in reality. And therefore, when they marry other people, they are able to express love. They know how to express love to another person. Okay? Don't marry somebody who lacked love at home. If a person lacked love at home, probably they are marrying off to run away from home. Because sometimes you get people, they think that we want to marry because we are in love with the person, but the reality is, no, you are in love with the idea of running away from home. You don't want to be at home. At home there is so much conflict, so much fighting, so much abuse, so much conflicts all the time that you would rather be somewhere else. And that's why you trick yourself, or your mind tricks you in believing that you are in love with this person. And this is something else that all of you should be looking out for. Right? Don't confuse your own feelings. Are you really in love? Is it really love that you're talking about here? Or do you want to escape a certain situation at home? Right? If that's the case, then understand that this is not going to work. Right? We all could be going through this kind of circumstances. You come from a family, a dysfunctional family, where there's no much love between the father and the mother. There's a lot of tension, there's divorce, and these crazy things happen in all families. Right? If that's the case with you, and then all of a sudden you start to feel that you are in love with another person, then you need to stop and think. You owe this to yourself. Right? Because when you are desperate to be with somebody, trust me, anyone else can read your desperation. You cannot hide your desperation. When you are desperate, anyone can read your desperation. And if you are desperate, then you'll be taken advantage of. Your rights are not going to be fulfilled. And that's the nature. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He describes us as human beings, He says, وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا إِنَّ عَرَضْنَا الْأَمَانَةَ عَلَى السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَالْجِبَالِ فَأَبَيْنَ أَنْ يَحْمِلْنَهَا وَأَشْفَقْنَ مِنْهَا وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about intrinsic qualities that He's created in us, He uses the word insan in the Quran. So if you want to know the traits that are built in you, look out for the word insan in the Quran and you can understand them. In this particular surah, in Surah Al-Ahzab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we have offered the trust to the heavens, to the earth, and to the mountains. And they refused to carry the trust. And they feared it. The one who carried it was insan. When his quality is what? إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. By his very nature, insan is a transgressor. And a person that misplaces things, treats people in the wrong way. That's in every human being. Meaning, if you are with somebody who can sense your desperation and who can sense that you have no one else to turn to, you will be taken advantage of. And your situation can encourage this trait to come out and become apparent. So you could be married to somebody who is a noble person, a noble lady or a noble man, but when they see you and they can see that they can get away with not fulfilling your rights, they will try that. And this is also something else I have seen. Right? I have seen a brother who I know very closely, such a beautiful brother, subhanAllah. You will not believe anything wrong with this man. And subhanAllah, eventually I got to know them, him and his wife, and they came for a counseling session, and I found that he was doing certain things with his wife, and I was thinking, subhanAllah, how could it be? You of all people, this brother of all people. But the problem was not him. The problem was the wife. She was desperate. She has a sense of desperation, and because of that, she never asked for her rights. And when she doesn't ask for her rights, the majority of people, إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ اللَّهِ, except those who are closely connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who are conscious with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people are inclined to transgress and abandon the rights of others. Except if they are extremely practicing and extremely watchful of the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and rights of the others. But how many of those do you see around you? How many? Very few, very, very few. Right? So this idea that you belong to an honorable family and you are seeking somebody who belongs also to an honorable family is a very profound idea. Meaning, you have seen love in your life and you want to be with somebody who has seen love in their lives. And somebody whose psychology, somebody whose mental state has developed naturally because he's being offered love in the different stages of his life. If that's not the case, then you need to perform tazkiyah. You need to look up, you need to look out in your heart and to cleanse your heart from any complications. For example, there are sisters, for example, girls, who have been brought up in families where physical abuse takes place. Right? Not physical abuse, taking the right of the mother away, not giving her what she deserves, taking her money away from her. If you have seen this, then deep inside of you, you develop this lack of trust towards men. You cannot marry somebody, you cannot get into the area of marriage when this is in your head. You need to perform tazkiyah. You need to cleanse your heart. You need to understand that yes, in this particular example, in my household, this happened. But it doesn't mean that every man is going to be like this. So you can see why the Prophet ﷺ says, look at the lineage. Look at the household from whom this person came. Do they have a stable family or do they have not stable? Education. Are the parents educated or not? The parents of the person. Are they educated or they are ignorant? Why should that have any bearing? Anybody? Yes, Sahih?
Or reflect on the child.
It's to reflect on the child. The way they handled the child, the way they treated him, you have a better chance that the parents would have treated the child rightly and lovingly if they were educated people. The uneducated people, for example, if you come across some uneducated people thinking that the more you beat the child, the more disciplined they will become. Right? You learn how to be in touch with your feelings. You learn how to think. For example, when you are talking to somebody who is used to reading books, for example, you'll find that this person has vocabulary to express themselves. This person is able to organize their thoughts before they speak to you. But that will not be the case with somebody who has not studied, somebody who has not read books, somebody who is not articulate and expressive. Yes, sister?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You know about how you spoke about you can only go for people who have a good family upbringing.
Yeah.
What if you didn't, but like they're mentally and emotionally stable, like they cut the toxicity out of their life? Is it cool to like?
Yes, it is possible. Somebody could have gone through negative circumstances, but at the end of those events or those negative processes, they came out of the other end beautiful people. For example, a person could have been oppressed in their lives, and then at the end of it, they decide that oppression is so bad that I will not like it for any human being to go through this. Right? And you could also find another person who goes through that process, believing that if I got it hard, people have to have it hard as well. Have you come across this? Yeah, so the same process. You can have people going through the same process. Right? But at the end of it, you can find somebody who's extremely beautiful at the end of that hardship, and somebody who's extremely evil at the end of that hardship. But what I'm trying to say here, this stability at home is an indication. If they have no stability at home, then this is worrying, to say the least, when you look at somebody for a potential suitor. Right? Yes, sister.
You mentioned a lot about how they have to have the love from their mum and dad. I witnessed that in order for them to understand love.
Mm-hmm.
But I know a lot of brothers and sisters out there who have single parents and yet they understand love. I'm guessing they probably wouldn't understand love to that extent, but they still do understand love. So wouldn't that, like, as a statement in itself, like, it's a bit confusing for me personally.
No, I'm not trying to say that anybody, like I just said now, you could have a hardship. A hardship being that you have a very horrible mother or a very horrible father. But at the end of that hardship, you end up deciding that I am not going to be like this with my children. Right? So I'm not saying that every person who has been through difficult family settings, they will become horrible people. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying it is the general rule. Those who become nicer at the end of it are the exception. The norm is if you are with the person, if you have been brought up with a person who is harsh, difficult, that is usually going to rub off on you. Right? The exception is there are people out there who learn the opposite of that trait. So for you now, we're talking about you deciding whether this person is a good suitor or not. You are going to go by probabilities because you will never get to know a person really until you marry them, right? You will never get to know a person really until you marry them. So your job while looking for somebody is to make sure that you increase the probability of this person being the right person for you. So you'll be looking at things and you tick in the boxes as you go on. One of the boxes that you should ideally be able to tick is the fact that he came up from a stable family. If he isn't, then you have something to investigate. Because as we will get to a point soon, inshallah, you'll get to a point where you need to speak to this person. Do you know what you should be speaking about? If you're not clear of what you're looking for, then that conversation, when you have it with that person, it will be just a conversation to increase bond and affection between the two of you. And that's dangerous. Ideally, you should know clearly what you're looking for. And therefore, you should be steering the conversation in that direction, trying to establish what you're looking for precisely. Right? If you don't have this idea, then you will be caught up with I love you, you love me, I cannot live without you, you cannot live without me, and this sort of things. Right? And then that conversation will not help you. Once you become emotionally involved, you will not think rationally. Right? Yes, sister.
So if you're getting to know someone for marriage and you find out they have different parents, do you not?
They have what?
They have divorced parents.
They have difficult parents.
No, divorced parents. Do you not proceed?
No. I'm not saying that. But this will give you a pause to investigate this area a little bit further. For example, a person who comes from a family that isn't divorced, who do you think is more likely to hold on to the marriage? Somebody who's brought up by a couple, his father and mother, who are holding on to their marriage, or somebody who's got divorced easily? One second, brother. One second. Let me just go one step at a time. Right? Do you understand, sister? Right? You are more likely to find somebody who is holding on to the marriage, because when you get tested, right, you will be thinking about quitting. Right? I would say that the person who was brought up with a parent who are holding on to the marriage is more likely to hold on to the marriage. Right? But I'm not saying that you should not pursue anything when you know the person has come from a divorced family. No. But this should give you another pause to investigate things further. Right? Yes, sister.
I wanted to agree with you. Sheikh,
Just one second. Let them settle down. Yes, sister. I didn't hear a word, sister. Please repeat again.
I said I was just trying to agree with you and clarify for the sisters. Sheikh Hakim al-Hadithi, he presented some statistics that if a person from a home where the parents are together marries someone from a family where they're divorced, they're I think around 50 to 70% likely to get a divorce. But if people who come to get married, both of them come from a family where there has been divorce, I think it's like the chance of marrying divorce is 153%.
It's quite high, yeah.
And the Sheikh, I think he meant it seems like if we honestly reflect with ourselves, if we come from a family where it's a single parent or it's from an unhealthy marriage, the things your parents say to you growing up, it does rub off on you, and you are a reflection of your environment and the people around you. So some people who come from broken families and stuff like that, they might be practicing very, they can't fight off their naps as easily, so they go and they seek comfort in like other women, with drugs, vice versa with girls as well. So
Yeah.
you have
There's always the exception, but the general rule is this.
to
You know? Yeah. Yes, sister.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, but obviously for me personally, I'm from a single parent.
obviously, like I said, let's agree on the fact that there are always exceptions. I'm not trying to paint everyone in the same brush, with the same brush. No, I'm saying that the general rule, when you look out for a spouse, this should be the guidelines from the Prophet ﷺ. You know, when the Prophet says, لِحَسَبِهَا, from the honorable lineage that she come from the honorable lineage that he has come from, that will have bearing in you and in your marriage, because of the way that this person has been brought up, the way this person has been nourished emotionally, psychologically. It will have bearing on how he will be able to conduct the marriage. Let me move on. Just another idea. He said لحسبها, and then he says لمالها. A lady is ideally married also for her money, her wealth. طيب? And it goes vice versa as well. For a man, for his wealth. Is this really important? Huh? Yes. More so these days. طيب? And by saying that لمالها or لماله for his wealth, is because life pressure is so immense these days. When you actually get married, if you are facing a lot of pressure, you'll find that you are unable to handle the relationship between yourselves in an effective manner. The pressure that happens to you affects your relationship. But if you are comfortable in your finances, in your job, in your career, then you are more likely to handle the relationship in a proper way. Right? So this is another thing that you should be looking out for. Somebody who is stable, right? Or is looking like he's going to become stable very soon. Somebody who is stable or looking like he or she is going to become stable very soon. This is something that you should not shy away from. Right? Looking for stability in the financial front. Right? And this is something very important. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, وَلِجَمَالِهَا. Jamal, the beauty, right? Physical attraction is in our nature. That we like beautiful things. Right? So brothers will be attracted to a beautiful sister. Sisters will be attracted to a handsome brother. Right? This is fine. Do not undermine this. Do not compromise this. This is the person that you will be living with for the rest of your life. Right? Let me tell you one case that I had, subhanAllah. A brother, he married a sister. And he said that all I knew about her is that she was the only niqabi in his locality, right? Or the people he knew. And he felt that this is good. It's an indication that she is committed to her deen and she is wearing the niqab. And we just agreed that this does not necessarily have to be the case, right? Because sometimes ladies wear niqab for other than the deen, right? To fit in with their friends. Or sometimes it can be like a phase. Or whatever. There are other reasons. There are those who wear the niqab for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and commitment to their religion, right? But it does not necessarily mean that this person has like proper deen in them. So don't be deceived by outlook. This brother, he said he married this sister, although, the point I was getting at, yes, the physical attraction. When he had this, the first look at her, nadra shar'iyya, he said, I wasn't attracted to her. And he said, subhanAllah, very noble of him, he said, I feared that after having looked at her, if I turn away, she will leave, she will abandon her niqab. Because she will be thinking that if this man had a chance to see me outside without my niqab, I wouldn't have had to go through the rejection. So he felt like that, he thought like this, and he decided to compromise with something the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in this hadith. He said, make sure that you are content with the physical attraction. Right? So basically he married her, and this sister every day, ladies, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe not because you're not experienced yet, a sister who is in a relationship, in marriage, right? She can read the attraction in the eyes of her husband or the absence of it. You'll be able to tell if this person likes you or if he doesn't like you. So basically it was very traumatic for her. Every day, every time she looks at him, every time she gazes at his eyes, she can see the looks of discontentment. And if he knew that this was the case, it would have been less of a torture to her to reject her then, at the beginning, to not marry her to begin with, rather than marrying her, and every time she looks at him, she can see that he's not contented. Right? So physical attraction is important. Make sure that you don't undermine this. And sometimes you get people thinking that if you are a practicing brother or a practicing sister, you should not be looking out for beauty. That's not the case. You should look for beauty because it's part of what the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in this hadith. Right? Is this point clear? Right? So these are, yes, Akhi.
Often as like brothers, we're looking at people, and we sort of get rejected upon because they're not as financially stable as most of the people will be. Sometimes they can go to the point of saying either that, thinking that well, a lot of sisters are shallow and they just look for money, and then they go to the other side of thinking where of trying to show off in terms of your money, in terms of trying to impress people so that you're more likely to get married. How do we avoid both of these and try to go towards some brothers they feel like they're not financially stable enough, then they're not likely to get married because nowadays how do we avoid that?
If you're not financially stable, right, maybe you're not ready for marriage. Maybe you're not ready for marriage. How about accepting this? Right? And if you're not ready for marriage, it will be just a waste of your emotional power and emotional energy in something that you're not ready for. So just decide that marriage is not for me now. I need to wait. I need to focus on what is more important to me in this phase of my life. And I will get to a point where I am more ready to marry. Okay? So financial stability is important, and you don't have to be financially stable at this stage, but you can see that the person is likely to become financially stable in the near future. This is something that has to be taken into consideration. Right? The life we live in is demanding financially. The world revolves around financial stability. Right? You will have lots of hard times. For example, as a Muslim now, as a Muslim couple living here in the West, with all this you hear about sex education and relationship education at schools, where are you going to take your kids? Are you going to take them to state schools? Or are you going to take them to private schools? If you're thinking about private schools, then where are you going to get the finances from? You pay for every year around 5,000 to 7,000 pounds for a child to go to an Islamic school. If you are financially unstable, then how are you going to manage this? So financial stability is really, really important. Right? And it has another aspect to it as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says, الرجال قوامون على النساء. الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men are leaders and sustainers and managers when it comes to the affair of their wives. Right? But then He says, the reason why they are like this, the reason why men are in charge of the affairs and managers and sustainers of the affairs of women is because of two things. One, بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala endowed men with certain traits and qualities that lacks in women. This is in the Quran, and this is the beauty when you hear things from the Quran. It's not me speaking, not because I am a man I'm saying this, but this is how Allah created things, and He conveyed that in the Quran. He says men are in charge of women, meaning they are the leaders, they are the house, the managers of the affair of their women. Because of two things. One, because of a quality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has endowed in them, which they lack in their wives. And two, because of how much they spend. Because how they spend from their own pocket. وَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. And because of the way they spend from their own money. And I have seen it without fail in all my cases. Women, they just feel naturally able to respect a man when this man is financially stable and also able to spend from his money comfortably without getting too stressed. Respect. Remember when we said love is about feeling respect, admiration, and feeling safe with this person, right? From a woman towards her husband, when the husband is financially stable and he is able to spend from his money, the woman will feel safer with him, and therefore love will be more able to take place between them. Right? So it's for your favor, it's in your advantage, brothers, to make sure that you don't marry when you are struggling with life, financially struggling. Make sure that you stabilize yourself. Right? Otherwise, when you could marry the same, you could marry the right type of person. But because you are not making her feel safe, because you're not making her feel stable, love will just go away. Because love consists of this, a sense of safety, a sense of security, feeling that they are secure with you and you are able to meet all their needs. Okay? Secondly as well, you are going to be the leader of the household. Okay? And some sisters, they have problem with this. And I said to you, please don't get into marriage without getting your head around this. Men are in charge of women. Get your head around this. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he made sure that he will not send an expedition, even if 2 people, except that he will appoint one of them as a leader. Otherwise, when it comes to the journey of life, we will get to a point in time where we will have to make a decision, either go right or either go left. By whose opinion are we going to go? By whose opinion are we going to go? If the husband wants to go right and the sister wants to go left, who are we going to follow? Yeah? The man. Right? And I say, if you are a practicing sister and you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, then you will submit to this. Right? If you have issues with that, then you will say, like, why does he have to be the one? Why can't I take the decision? Especially in circumstances where the wife earns exactly the same amount as what the husband earns, or even sometimes more. Especially if she puts into the marriage, like for example paying rent, etc., then it becomes a challenge to the sister. Right? So it's for you men, if you want to become the leaders of the household, spend from your money, earn enough, be financially stable. Right? And for the sisters, another note in this is that the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave leadership to a man, right? Not because he's right, not because he's smarter, not because he is better at making decisions. Sometimes you might find that your decision, as far as you're concerned, is smarter, is wiser. Right? You have more knowledge about this area than he is. And sometimes it can be proven by a track record of wrong decision that he's made. The husband. Right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the husband a leader not because he makes the correct decisions, not necessarily. Sometimes, or a lot of the times, he can make the right decisions. But even when he makes the wrong decision, let's take a longer path to the destination, but stick together. Right? If we are going to any destination, say we're going to go to central London, there's 2 routes. Okay, you know that there's a shorter route. Your husband doesn't know about that when he takes a longer route. Right? Go the longer route, spend 10 minutes extra on the path, but at least we stay in unity. So the idea of making a leader in the household, not because of intelligence, not because of making the correct decision, because some sisters, they have a problem with, why should I follow him when I think that he's making the wrong decisions? Right? One, he thinks the other way around. He thinks that he's making the right decision, and you are not making the right idea or contribution. Okay? So you need to understand that leadership in the household are given to the man, not because he's going to make the correct decisions, but because it keeps the unity of the marriage. Okay? And because of that, you brothers need to be financially stable. For the wife to be able to feel like she wants to leave you to lead the household. Yes, sir.
What is considered financially stable? They're different.
It varies from one person to another. It varies but it depends on your standard of living, what sort of family you come from, what sort of family she come from herself.
Do you compare yourself with others, like compared to your income, or?
It depends. It all depends. For example, at least if you come from a family that, mashallah, are very well off, right? For you to become financially stable, you need to have a considerable amount of savings and securing a career, a regular income of money. Right? This has to be the case. It will be different from one person to another. I would personally think that if a person is able to have a career, not a job, a career where you can see yourself going to a particular direction, and you can see yourself progressing, and able to finance a household, rent a property, for example, right? And be able to do that. And I would say also have some savings before you go into the marriage. Have some savings, right? I don't know, 20, 30, 50,000 pounds. You need to have that on your bank account. Going into the marriage without this, you won't be able to manage the hiccups of life. Yeah? But again, I said these are like general guidelines, but I think it differs from one person to another. It differs also depends on the person you are going to marry. If you marry a sister, for example, who come from a very well-off family, right? She's used to certain standards and she's lived a certain standard of life as well. What she will be expecting from you as well will be different from another sister who came from an average income sort of family. Her standard, her expectations of you will not be the same. So there's this general guidelines, but it varies from one person to another. طيب, any more questions? Yes, Akhi.
In your experience with counseling, what's the most common kind of problem that you see with marriages over the past 10, 15 years?
Well, the brother is asking what is the most common problems in marriages. I would say lack of deen, to be honest with you. Lack of deen. Lack of proper deen, I'm talking about here. Right? Not the label when people just classify themselves as practicing, but when you look in their reality, there's nothing there. For example, let's say attachment to al-akhirah. For a person to have their mind attached to al-akhirah. Right? For example, if you have a wife or if you have a husband, then when you have issues with this husband or with this wife, because your mind is so worried about al-akhirah, you will be able to overlook these kind of petty things. You will see them as petty things. But when your mind is not attached to al-akhirah, you will be clinging onto whatever. You will be picking on things and you will be disturbed by them and you will be agitated and upset about them. Why? Because your mind is not occupied by something big. Right? This is, for example, is one basic characteristic of a practicing brother or a practicing sister. To have attachment with al-akhirah. To be thinking about al-akhirah all the time. Right? For example, you will be wronged in the relationship. In the marriage, you will be wronged. Some of your rights will not be given fully at certain times. Are you going to be able to forgive? Are you going to be able to forgive? That what helps you to forgive is your attachment to al-akhirah. Knowing, for example, that if you forgive, you will be forgiven in the akhirah. And because of that, you will be more willing to forgive. But people who are practicing only by name, but their heart is so attached to dunya, they find it very difficult to let go. They have pride, for example. Pride, arrogance. And because of that, they will be thinking that how could he say this to me? Or how could she do that to me? And they will never let go of things. If a person is humble, then they are able to let go and forgive others. Right? So practicing is the key thing to succeeding in marriage. And I say it again and again. Practice in the sense that you seek Islamic knowledge. How many of you seeks knowledge here? In a constructive manner. You know what I mean by constructive? Right? Organized fashion. You learn level 1, and then you go to level 2, and you go to level 3. You cover one area, one discipline of Islamic Sharia, and then you go to another area, Aqidah, Seerah, this and that, Hadith, for example, Fiqh. You cover them in a systematic manner. This is what I mean by seeking Islamic knowledge. Who is involved in this sort of dynamic? Very good, mashallah. 1, 2. Only 2 people in this gathering. Trust me, brothers, wallah al-azim, you will struggle in life. You will struggle in life very, very much, unless you have the knowledge. Unless you have the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and for us to benefit from, you will struggle in life. Yes, sister.
In regards to constructive learning,
Mm-hmm.
because I just watch videos on YouTube, and I just attend kind of lectures and stuff. Is there some kind of checklist or something to see?
One thing about this sort of lectures, when you have like stand-alone lectures, you can see that they have this. They are never complete. They never give you an A to Z of the whole area. 1, because of the restriction of time. 2, because of the dynamic. For example, now I want this to be interactive. I'm not following an agenda, or I'm not following a systematic approach. I'm trying to go with the flow. طيب? So these kind of standalone lectures, they're not as educational as classes. Attend classes that cover, for example, a book from the beginning to the end. This is the best way. And then in different areas of the Islamic education, you'll find that there are basic books. When you finish them, you go to the following book, and then when you finish them, you go to the following book. So if you're not able to attend classes like this, buy books. Buy books. And obviously, we all know that reading books sometimes can be difficult. Being part of a group or part of a lecture when somebody's actually speaking to you makes it a lot easier for you. But if you are the type of person who can read books, then mashallah, and you've got it easy. Go to the bookshop and read and keep reading. A lot of people in life here, for example, we mentioned now this person who misunderstood the hadith. Who misunderstood the hadith of تنكح المرأة لأربع. A lady is married for 4 qualities. فاظفر بذات الدين. So take the one that has deen. He misunderstood that hadith. طيب? And then he divorced his wife when he had 2 children. Obviously, they couldn't live together. She couldn't see him every day. And the looks of discontentment in his eyes, it was torture for her. They ended up separating. Right? But now, she cannot move on with her life easily because she's a divorcee with 2 children, and he has a previous marriage with 2 children, and now his chances of finding a good sister from a good family who would accept him, despite of his previous experience, is becoming more difficult for him. Because sisters from good family who have invested in their daughter, they will say, why should we marry her to you? We've invested in our daughter so much, and now she deserves better. Why should you give her to you? So you see what I'm trying to say? This was a decision that he made at the beginning of his life. But the repercussions of it lasted with him until now, many years later. Okay? So lack of knowledge or misunderstanding certain concepts of Islam at the beginning of your life makes you make the wrong decisions. Even if it's just as simple as understanding this hadith. And this is the reason why I said don't rely too much on standalone lectures. In standalone lectures, you will have one speaker who will speak about a certain idea quickly, and then whatever you grasp of the idea, and then you will go away with it. Chances are you are going to be confused about it. Maybe you will implement it in the wrong way, okay? And because of that, you will have issues. Unlike if you have structured, whereby you read a book from A to Z, and you will not allow anything to be missed. You will detect anything that you don't understand, highlight it, and go and find somebody to ask. And on this note, subhanAllah, let me give you one golden advice. Seek a mentor, an Islamic mentor. And how you do that, obviously no one has the time to mentor you in the known sense of the word. What you do, speak to speakers, lecturers, da'is, those who are shuyukh or students of knowledge, and try to be in touch with at least 2 or 3 of them. Right? And get them to give you advice in the different stages of your life. Never take a decision on your own. Right? Get somebody involved. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh, can I call you? Right? I have a situation I would like to ask you for. Right? I am going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm thinking whether I should go left or right. What do you think? Right? In this sort of situation, what you're doing, you are trying to take a tailor-made advice for your particular circumstances at that time, and you want advice according to Islam. In case this person gives you inaccurate advice, be in touch with more than one person, more than one sheikh, more than one student of knowledge or whatever, and see how their answers differ. Some shuyukh are more thorough than others, so don't rely only on one person. This is something that will change your life, because receiving knowledge is one thing, and applying it in the right place and in the right circumstances is another thing. Sometimes people, they have knowledge, but they don't know how to apply it. Is it applicable in this scenario, or is it applicable in that scenario? So, for example, qadar. The qadar, one of the issues that I had recently, in one of the couple of cases that I had, a husband, he's holding on to his wife, and she is convinced that this marriage is not working, and both of them are very practicing. Follow this with me, please. Both practicing, the husband and the wife, extremely practicing. They have kids, 3 kids together. The husband is saying that we should stick together despite of the lack of love in our life for the sake of the children. And she said, basically he's saying that to protect our children, especially in this evil environment that we live in, we need to stick together as husband and wife. Right? She said, and listen to this, she said, if it's the qadr of Allah that they will go astray, they will go astray. She said, if it's the qadr of Allah, they will go astray, then we can do nothing to stop it. Meaning, we don't have to live together. We don't have to live together in the absence of love. He's saying, no, then the proper understanding of qadr is that one should do something to avoid negative circumstances or negative consequences, and that will be the proper understanding of qadr. Okay? Now you would think, which one of them is right and which one of them is wrong? Both of them arguing opposing ideas. Husband is saying, because of the qadr, we should stick together, despite the absence of love. And she's saying, because of her understanding of the qadr, we should separate. All of them claiming that this is based on their understanding of the qadr. So one of them has the wrong understanding of qadr. One of them has the wrong understanding of qadr. I'm trying to show you that knowledge isn't like a straightforward thing. You can know something theoretically, but when it comes to implementation, you will be confused. You don't know where does it apply. Does it apply more here or more there? Especially if you are relying on a lecture on qadr. A lecture, somebody speaks in front of you for 45 minutes thinking that they have covered all aspects of the word qadr. Quick, and then the lecture is finished, questions and answers. Don't do that yourself. You need to have thorough understanding. Right? Who do you think is right about this, by the way? The man or the husband? The man or the the husband or the wife? If you think that the husband is correct, put your hands up. Okay. So if you think that the wife is correct, put your hand up. If you think the wife is correct. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4 people. The wife is actually right. The wife is actually right. You know? Yes, Akhi.
So, for instance, the way that he said, for the sake of the children, we should stay together. At times, you might be going through that process, but through patience, you might discover that okay, it might be able for both of you maybe to come back together and actually solve maybe the whatever, let's say, the not dislike, maybe the love is not there, but through patience and giving it a try again, you might find out that love might actually be there, maybe just friends. Somewhere some misunderstandings that you've been through.
Like I said, marriage life is a challenge, and it's only endurable. That challenge is only endurable if there is love. You can only manage the difficulties that comes with marriage if there is love. In the absence of love, and by the way, do you know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ? This lady who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and she said, Ya Rasulullah, this man, her husband, she said, this man, I complain nothing about him concerning his deen or his manners. He's good with his deen and he's good with his manners. However, I don't have feelings to him. I don't have feelings towards this man. He said to her, would you give him back the garden he gave you as dowry? She said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. He said, okay. He called him and he said, divorce her. He called the man and he said, divorce her. And he gave him back the garden. And the Prophet in this hadith is acknowledging, if there is no love, you cannot sustain the marriage. She said, أكره الكفر في الإسلام. The lady said, I hate to act like the disbelievers when I am a Muslim. Meaning, during this marriage, interacting with my husband, I hate to be horrible towards him. When I am a Muslim, I should be nice to my husband. But I can't do it. I don't have feelings towards the man. Okay? So feelings, sometimes you cannot force them. You either click or not click. Right? Second thing is, what was your question? Okay.
Regarding true patience. True patience, you can come back to.
Yeah. So we said patience will not solve the problem. If there is no feelings, between the two, it will not. Patience continuing will not solve the problem.
For instance, what about if before the marriage they were actually in love, it was maybe through some difficulties during the marriage that they found like some problems or they fell into some problems, and she felt that she doesn't want to anymore. So because the fact that okay, let's say they get married, it wasn't the first marriage or arranged marriage, it was marriage that was built based on love, and through the marriage she discovered that she doesn't love him anymore.
It's possible that there was no love to begin with. It was confused feelings. This is a common issue. A lot of people, they get confused thinking that they love a person, when the reality is they have another issue within them. They are missing out on something big in their lives, and they want somebody to come and fill that vacuum. And no one can fill a vacuum that is within you. You need to see what is missing in your life, fill it up, and then when you meet the person, you'll be in the right mindset, in the right emotional state, and you'll be able to expect reasonable things of them. Right? And most important of all is sometimes when people are missing out on the love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you are missing out on this, the missing out on the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves a huge vacuum in your heart, and then what you will end up doing, meeting people and then expecting them to fill that vacuum. And they can't. How can a human being fill the vacuum created by the absence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from your life? So you will keep expecting too much of them, more than they can offer you. And that will lead you to destroying the marriage. Right? Yes, sister? I'll come back to you. Sister? You forgot.
No, my question was, because as people get older, they change. If the love is lost, is there a way to find it? People in counseling sessions have any of the couple who found the passion of the love?
Love doesn't go away. Love intensifies. Right? And people, the basic concept of wanting to be with that person, that is love. Feeling good when you are with that person. You would rather not be somewhere else when you are with that person. Feeling safe, feeling secure. When people are like this, they grow up together. And when they're not like that, I have seen cases, and I'm sure all of you can relate to something like this in your lives. Do you know of any couple, old couples, that live in two separate rooms, separate bedrooms? That is a common occurrence, because people who do not have the proper understanding of love, how to maintain love, they keep on drifting apart from one another until they get to old age when they're like this. Old age is the age when you need love the most. When the kids have gone, you lost your job, you're not anymore working, that's the time when you need this one person and you want to spend the most time with them. And that's when you have lost it. That person is not there for you anymore.
What if the husband just smells really
I
loudly?
want to speak, huh? What is the husband what?
What if the husband just smells really loudly?
Snores.
Or the wife the wife, and old age as well. Like, the wife is very shy, actually. Sometimes the wife is very shy with the husband.
I mean, snoring is a small problem. Honestly, snoring is a very small problem. If you love a person, and you know what you're receiving from them, you know what, when you receive something, when you receive love from a person, you will be happy to sacrifice anything for that person. Anything, you can overlook things if you feel that this person is providing you with love. Right? So snoring, the fact that he's a little bit untidy, or she is not a good cook, or some silly things like this, they will not matter if you feel that you are in love with this person.
Earlier on, you were talking about qadr.
Qadr, yes.
Do you not need to try as a person? For example, if I want to become a doctor, I can't sit at home and say, if Allah wills, I shall become a doctor and expect a degree to come from Allah. So
Yes,
do I not need to try?
You need to do the causes. You know, I gave that example, the example of the two couple who argued opposing views based on the same idea, the qadr, just to show you that sometimes what you think is Islamic knowledge is not deep and profound in your heart, that you cannot make decisions with it, with that knowledge. And that's why I said to you, seek a mentor. seek a mentor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, concerning the qadr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to follow the causes. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made for every end causes and means that leads to it. So if you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you need to follow the causes and the means to that end. Right? But sometimes you need to also understand that if certain things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also expect of you that which is within your capacity. You know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says you need to follow the means and you need to follow the causes, these means and causes, will they be beyond your capacity or within your capacity? Allah is expecting of you causes and means for whatever end you're pursuing, right? These causes and means, do they happen to be within your capacity or beyond your capacity? Within your capacity, reasonably, without killing yourself over it, right? Now, for a person who needs love, right? Who needs affection, who needs stability, these are basic needs in one's marriage. And without them, you will not even succeed. You know, even when you say, for the sake of the kids, you know, the people who live together for the sake of the kids, they will only be delaying the inevitable. So, for example, they say, we're going to be together for the sake of the kids. They end up divorcing 5 years later, or 7 years later, or 10 years later. They will divorce. It's just a matter of time. Right? So staying together for the sake of the kids isn't going to solve the problem. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's beyond you to live with the person with whom you have no love, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't expecting that of you. He only expects of you the causes and the means that are within your reach. And also the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the idea of the qadr is for you to believe that despite the odds, certain good things could happen to me. The qadr, believe in the qadr, makes you as a person, as a Muslim, a cheerful person, an optimistic person, because you will be thinking, despite the odds, despite the negative surroundings, good things will materialize. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He mentions Surah Al-Hadid, verses 22 and 23, He mentions the qadr. He says, everything is written in a book. And then He says, لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ, so that you are not saddened by those means and causes that you miss out on. Meaning that you could miss out on something, this or that usually leads to what you want. Will you give up? Or will you say that, no, if Allah decreed for me to have it, despite the absence of these causes, I will still get it. So now, in implementing this in the case of the marriage, this person will say, if my kids are meant to be guided, then despite of our divorce, they will still become guided. You see the idea? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not expect you to live a horrible life, and then that will be considered as something within your means and within your causes. No. Allah expects you to provide the means and the causes that are reasonable within your grasp. Right? Yes, sister.
Can I just further expand on what you said about the whole
Come on.
delay of the divorce? Because I know a lot of people
Actually,
that
I agree.
delay divorce.
I'm sorry, sister?
I know a lot of people that I don't know personally, but I hear a lot about the people who relate to the divorce because of their children.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I feel like when you delay it, you have more negative feelings towards it.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
it affects the children.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes divorce is a solution. Allah legislated divorce because sometimes it's a solution. You know, two people who have no feelings to each other and seeing their faces against one another all the time like this, they started to lose respect. They started to lose even the basic complements of life, you know, the basic human behavior. Right? And because of that, the kids start to see negative things, swearing, shouting, screaming, you know, even physical, domestic violence at home. So when you think about it, it would have been better actually if we divorced. That is not the best scenario, but it is the lesser of the two evil. Right? Yes, Akhi.
What are the side opinions on prenups?
Huh?
As in prenups.
Uh-huh.
Are they encouraged? Are they what?
Prenups is a document, is a legal document that is written and signed by both the couple, conditions that would be applicable in the case of a divorce. Right? And usually people would state there that in the case of a divorce, your property and my property, your wealth and my wealth are two separate things. You have no right on my wealth, and I have no right on your wealth. Right? I would say it's a good thing, to be honest with you. It's a good thing, right? Because according to Islam, when divorce happens, the lady has one right, and that is what? To be sustained during the waiting period. When a lady is divorced, she stays in the household, in the house of her husband for 3 monthly cycles, and he sustains her during that period. Once that waiting period is finished, and she is now become available to marry somebody else, she is no longer under his sustenance. He doesn't owe her anything at all. That's Islamically. Right? In English law, the law is she has the right to his property. If he has bought a property or he has certain income or whatever, they would share that. Sometimes split it half. Sometimes the percentage will go higher and higher depending on how many kids there is, which is not Islamic. Right? So prenups is a good solution to this. I want to talk about something else as well. Are you ready for marriage? Right? What should you look at to ask yourself if you are ready for marriage or not? Right? Remember, marriage is being with somebody 24/7. You know, marriage is when you are with somebody with whom your destiny is connected in such a way that you will not be able to tolerate a lot of things that you are able to tolerate with your friends. You know, your friend misbehaves and does something wrong that you don't approve of, but you are happy to let go of it. Why? Because at the end of the day, you are sitting at Costa, for example, over a cup of coffee. If you like her company, his company, you will stay for longer. If you don't like the company, you'll just leave. End of story. Right? And that's why you are able to tolerate easily. But when you know this person you are going to live with for the rest of your life, even the smallest of things, you'll be thinking, oh my God, I cannot live like this. I cannot live like... And that's why this is the common word that you hear. I'm sure you heard it from your parents. I cannot live like this. I cannot live like this. Because anything that happens, you'll be thinking that the rest of my life will become like this. And your tolerance will become a lot less. You won't be able to tolerate a lot of things. Right? So if you want to know if you are ready for marriage or not, one, in terms of your own characteristics, look at your relationship with your siblings. Your siblings, right? And your parents as well. If you are able to respect, tolerate, communicate effectively, overlook things, show kindness despite the lack of deservedness from the other party, from the other persons, and so on and so forth. So that gives you an indication. And a lot of people, by the way, they want to get involved in a relationship because they don't have any special relationships in their lives. And because of that, they become vulnerable. You ask a sister or even a brother, do you have a good relationship with your siblings? None. How is your relationship with your mom and dad? Non-existent. And because of that, they have a vacuum in their lives. So when they meet the first person, they think, this is love. And they're just confused. When they actually marry the person and they become responsible and they get into the deep side of it, they will realize then. But then it will become too late. So my number one advice to you, before you even consider marriage, I want you to work on your relationship with your loved ones, your siblings, your mom, your dad. See if you can improve things, develop things. Like in particular as well, I want you to check yourself whether you are an articulate person or not. Are you an expressive person or not? You know when you have feelings, right? Are you the kind of person who say, I don't know, but this is how I feel? Or are you the kind of person who is able to express, I feel like this because of that? Or there are people who say that I don't even know how I feel. Have you come across people like this? They say, I don't even know how I feel. Then when you are in a marriage or in a relationship and this person who loves you so much, right? And then this person wants to attend to your needs, but then you have to express them. They can't guess what's in your mind. You make their life so difficult when you don't understand your own feelings. So that's number one, understanding your own feelings. Number two, being able to express them. And this is something that you need to check yourself if you are ready for marriage or not. If you're not this kind of person, trust me, the only peaceful amount of time is only when you are falling in love at the beginning. But soon after that, problems will happen and will come from every direction. Your ability to understand your own feelings and your ability to express them in words will make you a much better person. You know, in relationships, people end up shouting, screaming, swearing, using some vulgar language with one another. Why is that? It's because of their inability to express their feelings in a calm way. Their inability to express their feelings with words. So people who have that ability, they will never need to shout, for example. They will never need to use swear words or vulgar language. Right? But the people who are expressive, they can always be calm. And also solving problems that you face in life is dependent on you being able to sit with your spouse, take this person to a coffee shop or somewhere quiet or a walk, right? Sit down and talk about things in a rational way. You can solve any problem in life like this. But again, if you are the kind of person who cannot articulate things properly, then there's a problem. And one of the most effective ways in becoming articulate and also in becoming aware, have self-awareness, is to have a diary. Have a diary. Document your feelings. Obviously, keep this to yourself. No one should have access to it. But try to put things in writing. Right? When you put things in writing, you become more clear about what's happening in your head. And then you have the words to write them down, and that will improve this quality within you. Yeah? Okay. But before I answer this question, let me move to the final segment of this talk here. If you find the right person and you are sure that what you have with this person is actually love, you love them for good qualities they have, and you know that what you're looking for is with this person, how should you go on about that? Right? To begin with, if we go by the rulings or the fatwa of the ulama from Saudi Arabia, for example, the ruling will be no, nothing is allowed. You can't speak to the person, you can't talk to them, you can't meet them, you can't do nothing at all. Right? But I believe that we here in the West, we have different circumstances. Right? For example, one of the circumstances that occur, for example, in Saudi Arabia, people live there with extended family. You have like 7 cousins, 7 uncles and 7 aunties and many cousins, etc. So the idea of finding a spouse is just easy. You know, you just tell your mom, your sister, and they will find you a person next day. They have no problem at all. And if you want to ask about this person, you can ask about them. You can get information about them. Right? This is not available to many people here in the West. A lot of people here, they don't have families from whom to marry. And even if they find somebody, they find that this person, you can't ask about them. Who do you ask about somebody who just met in a random place? Right? So applying the same rulings that are applied to Saudi Arabia, I don't think is fair for us to have here. Right? But whatever you do, I would say, when you meet a person, right, you need to have this thing. You need to know what you're looking for. You need to know what you're looking for. If you don't know clearly what you're looking for, then when you speak to a person, it will be all about love and affection and this and that. And then your vision will become blurred. You can see the most clear ideas of danger, but you will not pick up on them. So try to make sure that you are able to talk to a person without being emotionally involved. And the idea of guardian in Islam, especially for a sister, you have a guardian, a wali, because and your consent and his consent are both required Islamically. Right? You are the one who's going to look at things emotionally, because you are the one who's going to live with this person. So you consider things from an emotional point of view. And the man The father, the guardian, is there to consider things from a rational point of view. And therefore, when you have both the rational and the emotional agreeing and giving their consent, then it is a greater chance for this marriage to work. Right? So ideally, you would want, if a brother have an interest in a sister, right, to have the first contact with the father. That's ideally, right? But this is not practically possible. Why? Because how many people are going to be interested in a particular sister, for example? If anybody that comes to you, you send them to your father, then your father will not have a break. You know? Or sometimes he might have to deal with cases that are not worthy of his attention. Right? Or sometimes he might agree with a person and then it turns out that you don't like the person. Do you understand? So a basic level of contact is inevitable. It has to happen. Right? So if a brother believes that a particular sister or believe that he himself is ready for marriage, which I really doubt that any one of you is ready for marriage during university time. But this is for you to decide. Right? I think you guys have so much important things to worry about here while you are being at university. But if you believe yourself ready, then that's your decision. Right? A basic level of contact has to happen. You need to approach the sister indirectly. Ask about availability. Ask about compatibility, meaning that you're looking for certain things and she's looking for certain things. If there is indications that things could be taken further, then the next step is to involve the parents. Right? And I say this to the sisters, involve them at the earliest possible chance during the contact. The earliest possible chance. Right? And have faith in your parents. Sometimes sisters, they will be put off this idea, thinking that, my parents will not understand. My parents will not agree. I like this person. Especially when you have already been emotionally invested in this, you will not want to tell your parents. And this is a very dangerous territory. Very, very dangerous. Once you have become emotionally involved, you will lose control of the situation. May Allah protect you all. But we have seen cases where sisters have given in to the demands of the man they met in their lives, and then they had physical contact, she got pregnant, complications that has no end to it. Right? And sometimes you'll be thinking, why did she do this? How did she allow things to go in that direction? What was she not thinking? The reality is she was not thinking. Because when you become emotionally involved, your thought processes are not there. You're not able to think clearly. Men and women. Right? And then you end up falling into this. And then you find a situation where the boy is no longer interested in this lady. Because he have issues with her. Now, her chastity, her dignity, and so on and so forth. Right? So it's very important that you don't give in to emotional dynamics. The same thing applies to brothers. Sometimes you think that I've got nothing to lose. Right? No, you have something to lose. Good brothers, good men with honorable qualities, usually find it very difficult to pull away when they are told, I love you. You know, when a lady tells you, I love you, you feel that she has made herself vulnerable to you. And because of that, you feel that you have the responsibility not to let her down. So if you want to be free to speak to a sister and you get to a certain point and you want to pull out, don't allow this I love you, you love me situation to occur. You know? Because you will feel responsible. She's told you I love you and he said nothing, you allow this to happen, then if you are a good person, you will feel committed. You will feel that this person has shown her vulnerability to me, you will feel responsible for her. And despite your inclination that she's not suitable for you, you will still carry on. And this is the reason why the ulama, they said even phone conversations are not allowed between fiancés. Right? Like I said, these are the rulings for Muslim countries. Right? But you will understand what they mean by this. If you keep on talking on the phone for long times, that then what happens is you become emotionally involved and you stop seeing things from a rational point of view. So the less contact you have, the more rational you'll be able to have. So if you can't contact through email, then why make phone calls? Isn't it? If you can't contact through email to establish compatibility, then why contact through phone calls? Why do you talk on the phone? So it's for your advantage. Islam gave you this guidance for you to protect yourself. Right? Yes, sister?
Do you know about the whole asking your parents? And what if you have like a father figure who's not present in your life? He's low-key crazy or something like that. You don't want your potential students to like meet up with him because he's low-key crazy.
He has no interest in looking out for your affairs. From a pure Islamic or fiqh point of view, this person will be stripped from the guardianship rights. Right? But you need to establish this. And you go to a judge or an imam or whatever, and then he can decide that the next person in line to take guardianship of you is so-and-so, your uncle, for example, or your older brother or whatever. Whoever you think is more protective over you, who more have your interest in mind, then he will be the second person. But then establishing this can be a little bit difficult. Right? This is the good example for a situation where you need this mentor. You need to have somebody, a sheikh or an imam or a Muslim scholar. I would recommend 3. Whenever you have a Muslim speaker come to you, go up, approach them and take their numbers. Why not? Because you want to be enlightened. While you are in the process of seeking Islamic knowledge, how are you going to make decisions in your life? You need to seek counsel. On the phone, on text, on email, ask questions and then let them answer you appropriately. Yes, sister? Say again? Yeah.
Let's say that
you go for the second. I mean, when it comes to the first contact with the potential suitor, they need to know that you have protective family around you. Because this person's respect to you will increase if they know that you come from a family like this. Right? But if this person knows that he's only dealing with you, it's the human nature, sister. They won't give you as much respect. So if the father is not there, who is the second in line? Your brother, your uncle, whoever. Right?
what if they're not like here, so they're in a different country? They have to contact them for a different country.
When it comes to the nikah, conducting the marriage, the nikah itself, they will have to contact them, obviously. But now we're talking about prior to all of this. Right? You can appoint somebody to be your wali, for example. Right? You can say, for example, my guardianship is not in this country, so I'm appointing my uncle or my stepfather or whoever, and you can say this person is my guardian and I would like you to contact this person. Right? I sometimes have sisters who would send some people to me to speak to them. Right? Because they have circumstances whereby they don't have any guardianship in their lives. Right? And they want to have this male figure in their life who can speak to the person and see if they are suited as a good potential husband for them. But from a male point of view. But sometimes this can be an option for you as well. Who was here? Yes.
Does the guy sign anything?
Huh?
So if the guy is interested in the girl,
Uh-huh.
does anyone from his family need to back it? Like say,
Generally speaking, okay, and then take this as a rule of thumb. Do not pursue any relationship knowing that your families are not accepting of it. Do not do that. Right? Again, when you are in the flare of love, when you are falling in love with this person, you might think that you will find excuses for why you should pursue that. But trust me, what awaits you after the nikah is done is going to be hell. Right? You will not be able to get on with his side of the family, and he will not be able to get on with your side of the family. Right? That's why the advantage of getting the families involved at the earlier stages. They make them feel respected, they make them feel honored, and they will be more likely to accept whatever you are looking into. But definitely, for example, from a man's point of view, imagine if you're in a situation when you are torn between your wife and your mother. And this happens a lot of the time. Your wife is taking a certain stance, and your mother is taking another stance, and sometimes the mother can be the one that goes against or transgresses against the wife. Now it would be for you to stand out for your wife, for your mother, in protection of your wife. Do you imagine how difficult this will be? It will be extremely difficult to stand up for your own mother in protection of a lady who you only met a month or 2 months ago. It will be very difficult. You will be the one who's going to become stuck. And the wife, she has no reason to give this lady more respect than her due. Reasonable level of respect. And mothers usually, they demand too much, excessive amount of respect and so on and so forth. And they tend to cross the line a lot. So for you as a husband, you will be stuck in this situation. At the end of the day, this is your mother. You cannot speak to her in certain ways. But at the same time, you love your wife. You don't want to lose your marriage. What do you do? So that's why always make sure that your family are on board, agreeing to this marriage. They give their blessings to it.
So the wife tell the lady not to marry,
Huh?
the wife tell the woman to marry, you don't like her.
Obviously, don't marry somebody you don't like. Don't marry somebody you don't like. For you are a man. For sisters, your consent in the marriage, obviously, is a pillar for the nikah to be accepted. Don't marry somebody you have no likings towards them. Yeah? I have so many questions here. Let me entertain them quickly. Is it worth is it worth it? What about marrying somebody with a child? It's a good question, right? Why do you have to? What about marrying somebody with a child? You don't have to. Life is easier when you marry somebody without a child, right? These are the kind of things that you should be looking at. Why do you want to get into a complication? I'm not saying that you should just run away from anybody who's got a child, but if you have the choice to marry somebody who's not got any baggage from previous relationship, then why should you get involved in something complicated? Yeah. What about the obstacles that you will face? Is it worth it? Basically, the person answers their question. A lot of complications will happen. For example, I have a case where a husband has a son from a previous relationship. A lady has a son from a previous relationship, and the husband has a daughter from a previous relationship. Right? So basically, these two, they can marry. Yeah, they can marry. Right? A husband has a boy from a previous relationship, and the lady has a girl from a previous relationship. When they marry each other and the kids grow, can you imagine the dynamic at home? She has to cover up. She's not halal for him, he's not mahram for her. Huh? Yeah, it's too much complication, and they live in a 2-bedroom flat. So basically, there's a lot of complications that will occur from these dynamics. Right? If you can avoid them, why get into the complications? Marrying, yes. Is it worth marrying someone who doesn't have good deen if you think you can change them? Good question. And that's why I like these questions. Right? It's a very common question, and it's a common misconception. Right? If you can forget everything I said in this lecture, remember this. People don't change. People don't change. In the sense, what I mean by this, when you deal with people and you want to make decisions about whether to marry them or not, make your decisions based on what you see today. Right? What you see today. Is this a character that you would want to be married to? Don't marry somebody according to what you imagine them to be in the future. Right? That's very difficult. And also, the reason why psychologists say that people don't change is because when you meet a person who is 25 years, 30 years old, it took them 30 years to be the kind of person they are. 30, 25 years to be the person they are. Can you imagine for this person to change in such a way that they become drastically different? How long will it take them? Another 20, 25 years. Right? And also on top of that, it will involve cleansing before building different characteristics, right? Now we have negative characteristics, we want to cleanse them and build new characteristics. So do you imagine? So never marry somebody based on what you would expect them to change in the future. See how they are today and decide, is this good enough for me or not? Right? Ibn Uthaymeen rahmatullah alayhi was asked this question. A lady asked him, she said, a man proposed to me, he has, mashallah, PhD, he has a very good job, he's got very stable financial position and from a very honorable family, but he doesn't pray. I am hoping that in the future he will change. Ibn Uthaymeen rahmatullah alayhi says, don't make the decision of today based on conditions that will happen in the future. What you see today, make the decisions based on today. And again, never expect to change anybody. Please, save yourself the hassle. You cannot change people. It's a mission that is so difficult to change people. Just ask yourself, how is it easy? Is it easy for you to change yourself? Wallahi, even changing yourself is difficult, let alone changing somebody else. So when you see somebody with bad characteristics, just forget about them, move on. And there's many fish in the sea. You'll find somebody else, inshallah. Yeah, I should stop this. Okay. This one here. A brother has approached a father for his daughter. The brother and father both spoke. The father said, in order to go to the next stage, the brother's family has to call him, but the brother is saying his family will only call once he's financially stable. But the father still wants the brother's family to call in order for him to know the brother's family approve. Is it necessary for the brother's family to call her father? This is a typical example. The question says, a brother spoke to a father to ask for his daughter's hand. Right? The father now, being a wise man, he wants to know that the family approves. So he said to him, bring your family, let me speak and meet your family. The brother's family are saying that you are not in the position to get married now, and we are not going to see any family for the purpose of marriage unless you become financially stable. Right? So now the question here, is it necessary for the father, the daughter's father, to insist upon seeing the family of the boy? It's not necessary in the sense of legally, but it is necessary for the protection of his own daughter. He wants to make sure. And by the way, this shows you that the father is accepting for the idea in principle, but he just wants to take things in the right channel. And I say this to the sisters: if you become involved, or if you meet the right person, sometimes you might think negatively of your parents, thinking that my parents will never approve this, my parents will never understand, right? And you get to a situation where you prolong the relationship with this brother unnecessarily, and then things happen, right? You need to have faith in your parents. You know, they have your best interest in heart, and they will only think for your good. Right? So trust them. And now we're living in the West. The parents are understanding. They can see that we're not living back home in whatever country you're from. Right? We are here in the West, and there are different rules for the West. So now, in the past, where it was a bit difficult to accept somebody just knocking on your door just like that, you would rather, if your own daughter marries somebody from her family. Now many parents have changed. They don't think like this anymore. Right? Even if your parents seem to oppose this, right? Speak to them. They will come around it, inshallah. But if they don't go against their will. Don't do that to yourself. It's a lot of problems if you go in that direction. I think this is enough for today. Like I said, inshallah, my advice to you is to educate yourself about yourself, understand yourself properly, and understand what love is all about, and understand what Islam says about love, understand what marriage is all about, and then be clear about what you're looking out for, so that when you meet a person, you already have a checklist. You speak to the person about what you're expecting, and then that will make you in a better position.